I was given a very plum offer to be shifted to Dubai and take over the charge as CEO, but then I refused it and I said I would rather build my own dream rather than doing this, and it was something very overpowering. In India, we are a very complex society with multiple, linguistic challenges as well as diversity. So here, templatizing that and not having a customized approach was the core thing that created a differentiator. When innovations are brought out, it should go and be utilized where the community finds it applicable. That means it should change lives. It should bring some kind of a value in people's life where it touches people's life. And that keeps motivating me and reminds me that I've got a job to do. I've got to touch as many people as possible, not only in this country but across the world, and make sure that people at the grassroots level are able to enjoy this opportunity to have a dignified living through livelihood.
Welcome to an episode by Pace Wisdom, a podcast that brings you inspiring stories and insights from successful entrepreneurs and unsung heroes. Today we have shot an episode with Kishor Jagirdar of Ipreneur and Infopace. A very interesting episode where Kishor gives us a complete understanding towards how he is building a global acceleration platform, how they are actually adapting to all kinds of rural programs, enriching rural entrepreneurship, being part of Vision Karnataka Foundation and whatnot. A very informative session about economy, economics and entrepreneurial journey. Stay tuned to watch this without fail. Hi Kishor.
Hi.
Welcome to an episode by Pace Wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, and I'm really looking forward to unveil your journey. You have had a very phenomenal, fantastic run through of your career. So eagerly looking forward in this podcast.
Yeah, the feeling is same. It's mutual. I'm looking forward to this exciting conversation.
Thank you, Kishor. Straight cut, if I have to jump in, you have earned multiple degrees in the space of economics, HR, marketing, sales, all kinds of possible certifications from all reputed places. If I have to flip one narrative, what did you not learn in the classroom, which probably your vast career taught you in the course of action?
That's a very interesting question, and in fact it actually deals with a lot of aspect of what evolved me. Basically, when you look at the learning process, there are certain things that we come across through one unit where we focus or condition the mind all around that. But here it was a calibrated experience of connecting the dots and then understanding at different levels, converting each understanding into different levels, and it's like a building block, breaking it down and rebuilding it several times and creating different perceptions or utility out of that. This is what I learned practically in the workspace and practically jumping into things in experimentation and exploration. Now that was given a capping glory or a capping or icing of the understanding in a formal way in the B schools or the university campuses. But what I really learned was from real life experiences.
That's so amazing. In 1999, stability was the matter. Stability was always a safer bet. So people just said, hey, you know what? I just need to stabilize. You did something odd against the norms. You went on ahead and co-founded Infopace. Those were times where people did not know what is all about co-founding a startup or an organization. How did you go against the norms and started Infopace?
Well, actually, while I was in my last assignment as the regional director for the Finacle Group, there was this many episodes and incidents that came into my connect while delivering, the work. Here, I could see a lot of small businesses being given a lot of opportunities and choices to make, but most of these were not with strong foundations. They didn't know how to detect whether this is relevant for them or it could be a totally fake experience also. Because a lot of things were happening across in the export market, especially where LCs were floated around, purchase orders were given, and people didn't know how to convert that into a real business. and again to see on the other side what is the authenticity of this person who is doing business. So he could also be a novice or a beginner, and at the end of the day they create a lot of big expectation and then lose a lot of money. And then this was something that went on with several customers. So therefore I thought that I need to do something from my personal experiences where I connect the dots in an effective manner, where small businesses are able to access more authenticated approaches of doing business, ease of business, and also something which was burning my being, where we were talking about brand India, So where we look, the small businesses especially were looked upon with a lot of suspicion when it was coming to the Western countries or the outside market. And there wasn't that great perception about Indians doing business, because we used to sign MOUs and then negotiate. So there are a lot of practices which were not healthy. And most of the time we were coming across these OECD countries which had a very certain, layered, formatted, templatized, doing way of business and all that stuff. So what I thought was, why don't I act like a Robin Hood, where we engage with all the big enterprises that I was working with, learn those things and convert those things in a more capsuled, portable way, and which are easily adaptable and useful to the small business owners, where they need not go through the entire chain of processes, but they just focus on what is immediately relevant to them in the immediate success story and building their business. So that's where we started Infopace, when the opportunity at that time was to go to the next level, and I was given a very plum offer to be shifted to Dubai and take over the charge as CEO, but then I refused it, and I said I would rather build my own dream rather than doing this. And it was something very overpowering, and that led me to the foundation of Infopace.
So as a start, from what all Infopace did?
Well, when we started, we collaborated with multiple agencies across the world, and we were trying to leverage those management services to the Indian market.
More
so
like
assisting IT companies to penetrate in US, especially in the state of Delaware, where we were trying to see how they can leverage their branding and reposition themselves as a global organization, so that they can get better access to the OECD countries, almost all the 37 countries. And also this was about patenting and a lot of legalities and all, which created a sort of a smooth growth story for the businesses from here. And then at the same time assisting them in setting up their business out there and transiting from a small organization to a global entity, yet remaining lean mean as a entity. So this was something that we did. And while we were trying to do this, we came across lots of innovation programs and projects as a part of the business, and we got an opportunity to work in some path-breaking opportunity, like a supercomputer project that we got, and we worked to calibrate that to the Indonesian market, and we built that. It's a parallel computing machine.
So it was like different use cases.
Yes, there were many such cases of very innovative stuff. Then there were projects of cognitive learning, where today it's a common thing what we call as AI, but in those days the cognitive learning through gamification and all was not even heard of. So there were some projects that we worked on those kinds of levels. So I used to get lots of innovators coming to me and asking some kind of a roadmap which can take their idea to the place where it can be applied, or it could get a better visibility. So this is what most of the time we spent in the early days of Infopace.
That's amazing. You have worked with global giants like IBM, Microsoft, and I'm sure you had many unexpected challenges and common things in learning. What was that one thing, if I have to ask you, in relevance to these giants, that made you very strong in learning and adaptability?
A very good question again. Well, there are two instances that I can relate to. One is about the entire learning and development. What comes out of these giants is about cut and paste of what they would do normally in the US office, or in the somewhere in Europe, or where they would be centered. So the entire cultural activity and the way the organization is structured, So that was converted into a templatized approach and then implemented by default in the Indian scenario. And though in the Western hemisphere these things are a way of life, but in India we are a very complex society with multiple linguistic challenges as well as diversity. So here templatizing that and not having a customized approach was the core thing that created a differentiator. And then it helped me to discover that we have our own story, and the Indian business world has its own model. With every 40 kilometers, the preferences of the customers changing, behavior dynamics changing, and the expectation as the organization also changing. So this is something was the foundation on which we created unique storyboard for customized approach for learning and development, and also behavioral intervention. So this is something that one use case I can give. The second one I would like to mention is that there are so many things that we were doing as a condition of mind, where we say standardization is one of the approach where we percolate that across the organization without being sensitive to whether it applies to the geography or not, and whether that really is profitable or not, whether that makes relevant to the organization or not, or it could be completely contrary to the objective of the organization. For example, in a urban setup, if I have to say 10 steps of sales and I am supposed to do a competency mapping for an employee, and in a urban setup I would wear a tie and I would greet the customer, handshake and all that stuff. So this is the way we have been grooming the sales people. Now when you go to the tier 2 or tier 3 cities or a rural setup, sales are there, but then do the same standard approach apply there also, but when we are doing mapping we consider everything within the same hemisphere. So what I discovered here was what is supposed to be a success story in an urban setup, if you take that and apply that in a rural setup, the entire thing gives a different reading altogether, but yet the person on the ground could be a very successful story. Like for example, a salesperson in a rural setup will have a direct friendly rapport, heart to heart connection, and he will just dump the product there, and he will say, you can raise the invoice, and all this is done on relationships. Whereas in a urban setup, it's all based on standardized steps of processes. So these kinds of things gave me an insight that mass approach cannot work in India unless you have something of a hypersensitive, hyperlocal, implementation.
That's amazing. That boils down to a question to me, Kishor, looking into your journey. 2008 was a global economic slowdown, or rather recession. And times were completely filled with crisis. You come with business rescue service line, a very innovative idea and a very different approach. So what made you come up with that, and what is your advice to startups or companies who have not seen that to face such kind of a downturn, which is actually some of the hard times in the recent past the country had witnessed, or rather the world has witnessed? What is your take on this?
Well, one thing is a reality now that the organization life cycles have reduced. We used to hear about 50 years old organization, 100 years old organization, those kinds of stories in the last 2 decades ago. But today, if you look at it, if you start a business, the life cycle of an organization has come down to just hardly 2 years. So that means if I start a business today, my entire business will get redundant within 2 years unless I innovate something or I introduce something as a process or a product or a service which constantly retains the customer through engagement. And I need to stop the attrition by constantly offering something that is of a different value or a deep down value. So the expectation from the customers are completely different from what it used to be earlier. And this is something what we regard as a complete change in the scenario and the dynamics. Now, if if I put a lot of investment in assets and build a lot of scale in terms of manpower and infra, and at the situation is where you're going on a road, and the difference is being in a jeep where you can maneuver and take a reverse, or you can gear up and speed up at any given point of time at will. At the same time, now imagine you're in an oil tanker and you're moving, and there is a curve way ahead, and the time taken. Now in a jeep you can always maneuver, but if you pull an oil tanker there just to take a steep curve, the tanker will overturn. Right? So similarly, organizations are getting overturned because of the dynamic shift of technological change and the shifting dynamics of geopolitics and all these things which are happening, which were never witnessed before in any century earlier. So with this, the recession, what happens, it's all about finding innovative methods of how you will be able to reach out to your customers who are now shifting because of preference changes. So how do I constantly look for that, the data of customers, or the density of the customers, where I can constantly remine, and at the same time create multiple upselling and cross-selling opportunities to retain them, and instead of having 100, 200 customers, can I look at those 2% of customers who give me 80% of my business? So that kind of shift. Now, when we apply certain methods out here, it helps us to see that not only we are keeping our cash flow safe, but also we are also ensuring that the optics of the business is there in the market, the visibility is there in the market. Now this is something of a critical value at this point of time. How do you stay and be visible to the customer?
So that's actually what made you create Business Rescue.
Yes.
So, I mean, was that something very impromptu that you did because of the situation, or you saw this coming, and or you prepared much earlier?
Oh, well, if you look at some of the videos and some of the presentations I've made way back in 2010, and some of the research reports I've published, so I've been talking about this shift happening way back in 2006-7, and I've been predicting this shift on a very catalysmic way, because the shifting is that we are breaking down into what we were earlier as an economy, where micro enterprises and collective clustering of enterprises was what the way Indian economy was engaging about 300 to 400 years ago, and we were able to contribute to 24% of the global trade because of the way we were working in clusters, where there was an inclusive approach. Now we are moving slowly and transiting from this globalization impression and this massive global kind of models, where we are blindly replicating things without having the understanding whether it really works for the local economy. Does it make any sense at all? Whether it connects and brings a total optimization value of value chain, that was totally missing in the whole perspective. So now you are seeing all this shifting happening, and we are going back to what we were about 300 to 400 years ago. So this is the shift, where micro enterprises will now be the growth engines all over the world, not just in India.
So you saw this coming in 2006, 2007, which was great, because then the ecosystem was much different. Do you see something like this happening in the near future, or you don't think so, considering all the global trends?
Yeah, see, one thing is we have shifted from a foreign direct investment and a globalization chasing kind of mindset, where our focus was largely taking all the best produce of India and exporting it for a better value. Now, from there, we have moved on now to seeing how we can deep dive and create better value, where the same product with the same geography and the same resources that we have, can we create a higher value chain in the that is the not only revenue generation, but also create better value which is of global impact. That is, we are talking about global value chain. So can we produce and solve the local solutions and bring out the local solutions which will bring a global value chain. So that is where we are heading to. So therefore I see a great shift in the next 20-30 years, we are shifting from this FDI driven mindset to a innovation driven mindset. So just to give a small example, if you look at the bitter gourd, if it is sold in the market everywhere, it's about 70 rupees a kilo, if you look at it today. But there's this gentleman in Bihar, he did a lot of deep study on the same family. It's called hopshoot, and he has been producing one whole hectare of land he has put under this, and he's been producing this. And 1 kilo of this, just 1 kilo produces about $1,200.
Wow.
So it's the same family of bitter gourd. It's called hopshoot. So from 70 rupees a kilo to moving to $1,200. It's almost 1 lakh. Okay, so 1 lakh produce from 1 kilo. So that means the resource is same. The entire utility is same, but now you have moved up the value chain, and this particular vegetable is used in the pharmacology and the nutraceutical industries in Europe for a specific purpose. So therefore the extracts of this is of high value. Now this is the innovation driven thing. So all the resources are same, but now you have moved up the entire dynamics of value creation, which gives better yield and 10x to 20x growth.
So you say that we don't see such kind of a scenario repeating in the near future because of innovation driven approach.
No, what I'm saying is this is what will be the way we will now move on. And everywhere, right from agriculture to our lifestyles and because we have moved from just being into a mundane lifestyle to a quality way of living. So more people are conscious now, and therefore I see a great shift in innovation driving the economy now.
Correct, but also to correlate 2008 mishap for many global trends which happened. To stress on the same question, do you see it coming sometime down the line, 5-10 years or a couple of years, such kind of a scenario the world may go through? Of course, yes, there are so many parameters that neither me nor you can control, but in correlation to what's happening today with the existing trends, what could be the prediction? You see that this may happen, this may not happen, or it is like you can take a stand precisely?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, our mindset was wired to the globalization. So therefore, we were looking at more of the MNCs coming here and driving the economy. So it's about 20,000 crore investment and hiring about 1,000 people. So now the scenario is different, where we are seeing we are putting 1,000 crore and hiring 20,000 people. So that kind of scenario. So it is more of labor intensive and inclusive, and also distribution and democratization of opportunities. So that is where we are heading towards now. So the scenario might be repeated in a different way, but not in the same way that we had in 2008, because 2008 was a meltdown. And the world has completely changed. From 2008, there is no globalization in that format existing, but yet we are blindly following that, though the economy or the dynamics of economy doesn't even exist today of that nature. We are just blindly following it because we are conditioned to look at it that way.
I clearly understand.
So right now what we are seeing is that there will be ups and downs in the economy across the world because of the aging population, and the rest of the world is aging, and there are new countries that are coming from Africa, Latin America and Southeast Asia who are showing a little bit of positiveness in the birth rate. And there are 3 countries that stand out here. The one is Bangladesh with 7 million surplus population, Pakistan with about say 19 million surplus population, and the biggest challenge here is about 47 million surplus population, which is coming right from India. Now how do we engage them? Now you have already seen in Bangladesh, by not having a proper engagement model for the 7 million youth, they came down to the street for unemployment and all. They created a mess and the government toppled, right? Of course there were many other factors, but the fundamental factor is that they were not engaged. So now that means the current dynamics says that you need to engage your population in an optimum way and find out better ways of business models that can see that there is a percolation of opportunity and democratization of resources and opportunities. So that's where we are heading to. So therefore, any shifts that may happen could be due to geopolitical ups and downs, which could be of temporary impact. But India, more or less, as a country, has now started insulating itself from all these things. Now, there was a time when US sneezes, India catches cold. So, but today I think we are not there. We have moved on, and we are now talking about writing our own story.
You work with Vision Karnataka, which is Vision Karnataka Foundation is what it is called, and it is nothing less than a huge transformation, right? So, was there a specific moment which made you, find something very innovative in that moment, or is there a specific moment in which a rural entrepreneur's work where it convinced you, saying that, hey, this is where we need to focus on, and this is what Vision Karnataka Foundation is all about. So, can you explain what is Vision Karnataka Foundation and what influenced you to get to that kind of a massive scale to be participating in that?
Yeah, Vision Karnataka Foundation is basically a thought process. It's a shared leadership and a community of change makers, of people with like-mindedness but with diverse background. So there are two things that came out in my journey all these years. So one thing what I realized is that any innovation that needs to work cannot work as long as it's in a homogeneous environment. That means we go to a tech park, we find most of them are engineers, their jokes are the same, the entire stories that are shared are all with the same influence. So you will see everything in the same background, same way, that they are insulating as a community. Now, innovation of real time, which is through which is sustainable, which has the power to sustain, comes through heterogeneous efforts. That means the environment has to be heterogeneous, where age groups are different, thought processes are different, and even people coming and resisting it means all the more better, because there is through resistance a better version of the thinking process. But if it's all the same thought process like a homogeneous environment, it doesn't really come out with a lifelong value creation. So therefore, what I feel is that one is this heterogeneous example. Second thing is, when innovations are brought out, it should go and be utilized where the community finds it applicable. That means it should change lives. It should bring some kind of a value in people's life where it touches people's life. So just by demonstrating innovation and saying that there is a breakthrough, and then pursuing academic interest, or allowing it to die a natural death without reaching its logical outcome. So that is where I felt the gap is, and the Vision Karnataka Foundation is actually created to address this issue, so that we are able to create mass entrepreneurship where the innovations, again this is a Robin Hood story, where we take all the breakthroughs and make it reach to the people who really need it. And therefore there is a bridge required, and Vision Karnataka Foundation acts as a bridge which enables sustainable development happening through community ownership and community shifting. So it's all about change management.
I'm sure these experiences led you to a massive 500 crore grant from the government, so which is a huge, humongous responsibility. So what is the toughest challenge that you have seen through in this? Like, what's been the toughest leadership challenge, if you have to be precise, in balancing vision with accountability on each scale of operations that this fund was involved in?
Yeah, that's a very deep question, and definitely it was not very easy managing this kind of a project, because people are driven with their own inherent need. And some people do it for the sake of livelihood, some people do it for the sake of adding more income to their existing stream of revenues, and some people have some other motive altogether to see what they can make the best of it. So everyone is looking at sharing the opportunity. So here the whole alignment about why we are doing it and for what purpose, and creating that value-based driven service model where people own it and say, yes, I belong to this. So there's a compass which is guiding us even when the lights are shut off and when no one's looking. Am I following my compass? Am I doing what is there, or it's purely due to peer pressure or something that I'm trying to behave? So this is about self-driven, self-purpose driven organization where every individual feels wired to the cause. And that was where the biggest challenges was, because the money, on one hand, we have to do the spending on the ground to see the activity is alive. Second thing is to see that the purpose is steered in the right direction. And then the third part is about seeing that everyone stays put in one direction, because this is like people going in all direction of their own, with an understanding happening gradually, slowly. It takes time for people to reach there. So the biggest challenge was to manage the whole thing on a very massive way and putting this entire thing in a structured approach, and that took time. And I would say the hand of universe was here in some way guiding. I've just been lucky, I guess, and also been blessed with good people around who were able to make this happen.
That's commendable, because I know the scale at which this was being operated with this grant and how this, because it's a good explanation that you gave me how this was functioning. Now this leads to me a question where you're a chief business mentor at Ipreneur. What is Ipreneur all about?
Well, now I was talking about all this while about people at the grassroots level. So they are the producers. They get joy in producing things and expressing themselves as maybe artisans, or they will be coming from the agri background, or they could be just from the gig economy. All of them are producers. Now, once they produce something, they would look at where can I make sure that I am able to sell this and make my income, right? For that reason, we looked at how we can identify startups who have gone a long way with a matured approach, have their clarity of thought, and how they will be able to bridge the gap here and ensure that they will be able to take these producers to the market, right, as one point of time. And second is how they can come back and create deeper value into this activity through technology innovations, through their own observations, or the service or products that they are selling, how they can bring it back here and create deeper value, so that the value chain also moves up here for the producers. Now, this is one aspect of it. And the second part is about the biggest thing I saw in the market is that a lot of people who want to invest. There are a lot of VCs that have sprung up now. But then, if I just know that which startup will give me good returns, and I just get to know about it and I invest in that, then I'm sorted. But unfortunately, the whole ecosystem doesn't work like that. If I'm a VC, I have to put at least investment in about 100 startups to find those 5 or 6 success stories which will make my entire money come back. So therefore, it is more of spray and pray kind of games. And in this scenario, I felt that the most critical part is about the deal flow. So can we create a more calibrated or a curated process which will allow deal flows to happen, and it will give better value to investors, and it will also create a more trustable or a stable ecosystem where we are bringing all relevant factors together with a more calibrated approach, and that ensures the economic or the dynamics of the economy is more stronger. So based on this, Ipreneur was created to see that we spot all these great stories, business ideas, and we're not talking about those ideas which will be the next unicorn or Sonicon or those kinds of things. We are talking about zebra organizations. Now these are zebra startups are those who are not only brilliant in social impact, but they are also doing very good profitability also is there in their business. And at the end of the day, these are the ones who will hold the economy.
Okay, so Ipreneur more acts like an accelerator.
Yeah, we are an accelerator. So what we do is we work on the startups, we choose them, we work on them, and we enable them to get connected to our aggregated markets, which we have built over the years. So even before the investor steps in, the business would have already got lots of purchase orders and potential value of 2x to 10x growth, and the confidence level of the startup would be on a higher platform, where they can then with confidence talk about how to deploy the fund, or whether fund is even required. Because if I have got a very good set of customers and they are giving me advance, I don't even need to go to funding.
So normally, how do you function? You take a stake in this acceleration program, or how do you engage? Or are you choosy with any particular segment, or you're open to all kinds of promising businesses? You find that, hey, you know what, this startup is brilliant, I would like to venture this right in my accelerator program. What is the mode that you like to operate? Because everybody has their own significant mode in operating an accelerator today.
Yeah.
And it has grown to a large extent all the way since 2017 when you started. So what is the mode that you operate?
Well, what we are trying to do is first we are looking at whether this is a scalable business, and then what is the story it has, whether it can create deep down value to the district development plan, any part of the country, or within the local community where it can make an impact. So once we have understood that, then we see if it falls within our strategic purpose. So if it is within the strategic frame, then we invest in it and become part of the story. And we become we join hands with the board and see that the implementation is going as per the format that we have created. Now, in case we find that it's a good idea and it can produce certain value, but then if it is not able to scale on a very big way, and idea needs certain level of support, so then what we do is we participate in with the whole process. We connect them to the local opportunities that we have within our network, and then ensure that we take at least 2% of our stakes in that, so that it makes them feel that we are part of their story. So it is not about giving an external hand, but we are together as a storyboard. As I was mentioning about the deal flow as the critical component of Ipreneur, now what we are looking at is we are also now trying to connect it with the other ecosystems across the world. So we have been negotiating with various acceleration entities across who have already well established. Like we're talking to Faster Capital in Dubai, where we're talking about having a base in Dubai. So we are talking about Ipreneur Dubai, Ipreneur UK, Ipreneur California. We are also in talks with Tel Aviv, so Ipreneur Tel Aviv. Then we are looking at Sydney, where we'll also be looking at having deep cohorts into deep tech and all that stuff. And then we are also looking at Hong Kong and Singapore, where we'll be having our base. So this will enable us to come in contact with the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and startups, not only from those areas, those ecosystem, and connect our mentor pool. So we have built about 200 plus mentors, and now we are expanding to make it a global mentor pool, so that people can learn from those ecosystems and add value to what we can bring it back to home grown startups. At the same time, can we take these startups and create a sort of a story there where they can penetrate the market and assist them in the market entry approach there also. So this is one of the activity that we are planning to do right now, and that would be the focus in this next 2 years. And with this, we would like to see if it creates a cross-culture exchange and brings innovation and also accelerates the learning for these people. And if it is any cultural specific intervention that is required, that is also there, so that the investors, the value that they get from this whole thing is much, much higher, and it also de-risks a lot of investments. So this is one of the things that we are trying to do.
That's nice. So what's the most common, this puts me a question, what's the most common blind spot you see in the startups where they're struggling all the way from the survival mode to a scalability mode? What are the common blind spots, especially for the startups in India?
Most of the time we find that people are into a lot of cognitive stress, and this stress happens because they've not thought fully or holistically about the entire business idea. If I'm a technical guy and I'm an engineer, then my entire focus will be more on the product prototyping and introducing and developing the whole idea. But I may not be so good in sales, or I may not be good in any other aspect of the businesses. So most of the time what happens here is, if these things are not taken care of and well understood, the business at some point of time will give a great feeling, but then will start slowing down, and the co-founder gets stuck. And most of the time people give up at a certain point of time because they feel the whole thing is overbearing. And so therefore what I feel is, one, that people have to be holistic in their approach, and which is missing, and as a blind spot. Second thing is about enjoying the whole journey, where they are able to have a learning space, and they do it with a lot of soulfulness. Now that is missing here, because most of the time the work what they undertake is under some kind of peer pressure, or some kind of feel good factor which drives them. It is not about the business actually. The focus is not centered around the business. So therefore when they face the stages where they need to raise the fund, or they need to reach out to the market and expand, at that point of time I feel most of them get stuck because of the lack of understanding or awareness. And this comes because of the various skill sets which they would have. So they would not have thought about it, and most of them do business without a business plan in place. Now of course we all talk about the business canvas model and all those kinds of things, but then at the end of the day it is not deep down, and this is where the blind spot most of the time comes, because they realize this only when they have walked into it.
Yeah, I can resonate this conversation with one of the TEDx talks of yours, which I saw. Also puts me a question. In one of the TEDx talks, what you have participated, you push and you motivate SMEs to think globally. Okay, and what is that one competitive edge Indian SMEs have? And what are those competitors globally who are underestimating these SMEs? What do you think?
Well, if you look at it, we are a diverse ecosystem, and the kind of calibration that we have in the entrepreneurship is far different. And second thing is, most of us are working on the sustainability as the quotient, and the ability to do this, what you call, we used to call it as Tod Ford Jod. That means you break down the business idea, then again you combine it, and then again you come with a newer version. So, and then we also have this popular thing called as Jugaad system and all that stuff. So these are some of the things that the entrepreneurs across the world are not looking at it at a serious level, because these are not just the inherent thing or a quality that is there within our culture and within our ecosystem. It enables us to not only find solutions when there is scarcity of resources or availability of options. We go into such depth that we bring down the cost, we bring a completely new version of some solution that may not be even existing. So therefore I think this is something that is very understated as Indians, and the global the community out there needs to look at it seriously, especially in the coming 25 years, when the entire world is looking at India as the solution provider for the needs of these local economies. I think we are reaching there now, and I think we need to make people understand this inherent talent of us.
Okay. Innovation must be inclusive, is what you have been absolutely emphasizing throughout a career. And what are those influences and philosophy behind this for you to arrive at this statement?
Well, you see, any place or any geography where development takes place in real sense, it's about being holistic. and carrying the entire population together. And now anyway the shift is happening from overindulged lifestyle to a more quality way of living, and people are looking at how they can engage into the distributed economy opportunities that I was talking about earlier as well. So we are talking about democratization of the opportunities, one. Two is distributed economy, which enables people also to participate, where everyone gets a chance to get their livelihood, right? And then through this, how do we then come back and contribute? So when there is well-being and livelihood in place, automatically the ecosystem becomes a more calibrated place. There's well-being all around, and then people start contributing back to say that this would be of collective value. That's when people start seeing collectiveness, and that collectiveness, if it needs to achieve, then the innovation has to be inclusive. So therefore everyone should get a bite into the opportunity and see that how they will be able to transform their lives through it. So therefore we need to focus on innovations that brings everybody in connect. And that one simple example is like the UPI is nothing but a transforming, groundbreaking, which brings the whole community together. And there is no differentiator here, and there is no shame in using UPI, and there is no differentiator here between the rich and the poor.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well taken. I think that's a right context in which globally India has shown how an economy can adapt to such kind of a massive technology in all possible scales, where the Western countries could not probably influence us as much as India does.
There's so many countries adapting to it now, and they're asking to be replicating out there. So that's a big shift.
I completely resonate to what you're trying to say. Absolutely. Looking back to your career, what's the most surprising way you define of success that has evolved within you?
Okay, well, this success is a very elusive thing, and it is a very perceived thing. So for me, the excitement of having to work on every time a new challenge, and living in challenge and thriving in challenge, and constantly trying to look towards how converting problem statements into solutions has been where we are talking about unsolved problems to be broken down, and we come out with creative breakthroughs, right? So those things have been something that has been always exciting and been driving my entire career so far. And that's what we have taken as the core value of our organization as well. And I'm hopeful that the entire team that is now being in the forefront and leading all these initiatives are also imbibing that. So I guess this is where I see my life story.
That's so impressive. What was an episode, if I have to ask you, what was an episode in your life that made you come here? Is there any episode like that? If I have to tell something coming to the top of your mind, that this episode influenced me to this path of success, or this episode is responsible for me to wherever I am here today. Do you have an episode like that?
Well, I have 4 such episodes, but
wow.
I would just like to draw one when I was about 7 years old. I was expecting my parents to be coming home, and this was a scenario in Bombay. So in those days, we had these railway tracks just next to the apartments. Now I guess that's not possible, but then that was something that draws my attention all the time and makes me shiver even today. So suddenly there was a thundering sound and explosion sound. We ran out and saw that one local train had actually jammed, and it had rammed into the other one, and it had climbed over it. So we saw a lot of people lying around with broken limbs and a lot of things around, and I used to always think that in that situation the most natural thing for a person would do is to go and offer them water or something like that. But then there were a lot of these refugees, Bangladeshi refugees and all, on the either side of the railway track, where we had this the slum and all that stuff. So instead of providing water, we all ran to get water. But when I came there and I saw that they were more busy, all these kids were more busy in taking away the watches, the wallets, and the valuables of these people, and it hit me, very badly, because I used to always wonder why these kids, when we are playing, they come and steal the stuff there and they run away, and then they used to take that as a way of living, and they used to make their livelihood through that by stealing things and going and throwing it to the the what you call the Gujri, what we say, where all the waste management happens, and there's a value for that. So I used to always wonder why they live like this. And then that day when I saw this incident where the same kids who are all around of my age and a little elder ones, going and doing this kind of thing, it made me feel that what is it that we can do to see that people are brought into the fold of dignity and livelihood, where people can earn their bread and they don't have to steal and they don't have to go out and do such things which is corrupting the society. So if we can give them an opportunity where they can earn and grow in a proper way, in a healthy environment, they can be growing up to be great citizens, and then through that method they can bring a lot of harmony, and that, I guess, is an ideal country that I would like to live in. So that's the image I got, and that's the message I got at that age, and it's all been throughout my life. It's been driving me, and that memory of that accident and that incident still is so vivid that I wake up many times and I still find it hard to believe that thing happened, and that keeps motivating me and reminds me that I've got a job to do. I've got to touch as many people as possible, not only in this country but across the world, and make sure that people at the grassroots level are able to enjoy this opportunity to have a dignified living through livelihood in an honorable way.
It clearly resonates with all the programs you're doing with Vision Karnataka Foundation, or could be other CSR initiatives. It clearly resonates to what you're trying to do that. So that's so brilliant, and it's a very powerful story. It's also very disturbing. So I understand where you get that. Now, conjecting to the last question, okay, coming now on the cards, I just have one question to you left. 10 years from now, looking ahead, especially what's the boldest hope for Indian entrepreneurs in the ecosystem? And what's the first step you think aspiring entrepreneurs should take today to help bring the visions come in all life? And where do you see the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem in the next 10 years going?
Well, again, that's a very powerful question that you've asked, and the way I visualize it, that as I was mentioning in the earlier conversation, that the dynamics of the economy has changed globally, though we are not willing to accept it. We are refusing and we are in denial in most part of the stuff, because the way we measure it and all are still very unconventional and outdated methods. And right now what I see is, going way forward, what we need is inclusive way of growth, where we bring all these clusters of opportunities. That is one we talk about. If there is a local resource available, let's say cashew is grown there, then skill sets are there, then combining these two from that local territory, how do we create a cluster which enables people to come together as a community and take ownership of the shift there, not only in the livelihood but also the socio-economic development. Now you just imagine a situation where we have several such clusters in the talukas all coming together, and several clusters coming together and giving cross-selling or upselling kind of value to each other, and then creating a local economy by itself, where you don't have to focus on exports, you don't have to focus on something very external, or you reduce the carbon footprint by not thinking of transportation and all that on a very long journey. You just have to think about what you can do to meet the gaps in the local territories and what is abundantly available there to convert that into a selling point. Now, if such clusters are created at a district level, we can have lots of MSME clusters which will get the opportunity to process these and create further value.
That's
right? And this itself becomes a competitive idea of how 1% of incremental change that we can bring at the community level, at the cluster level, can result in a holistic cumulative result which is exponential in results. So I feel that is where the 1 trillion story of every state in India. So we have all the states coming together and having a competitive advantage within each states by doing business with each state, and then creating that 1 trillion story with their local resources, what is abundantly available, and local skill set. Now, if that is the focus, then we are sorted. We have completely insulated ourselves from the external dynamism or change. Though I am not saying that everything is possible, right? To look that way, but you have sorted yourself where any repercussion across the world through global recession, inflation, or whatever happens, stagflation, or anything that comes through, India stays, peacefully in its own that is equilibrium. Right? How do we maintain that balance? Now, taking way back to how the joint family systems were there earlier, recession made no sense to them, because at the end of the day, in any difficulty, everyone was holding each other and they used to tide over the things. Similarly, if we all come together as clusters at the grassroots level, and then at the district level, we come together in creating a value chain for that, and the whole value chain should be such that it should create a global impact. That is, the produce should be having tremendous value any part of the world as well. So we don't think about ourselves alone, right? And this way, I think India will stand as the world's largest market, and this is unstoppable. I think we are now already in the third position. Nothing stops us being the world's largest market with about 20 trillion or 30 trillion story that we can create.
That's very powerful, Kishor. That's very impressive. I mean, that's a good thought that we're trying to resonate to what's happening globally today. Do you have any closing remarks before we sum up the conversation?
Yeah, I think we are at the cusp of a brilliant opportunity, and it's not just a mental facade or a kind of an illusion, but it's really the truth that what we write today and what we do today will be how the world will shape in the coming years. And definitely it is India's story, and what we write and how we write is all what matters, and that we need to keep doing from the moment of now. So therefore, I would really say that whatever has been created, I don't know whether the legacy will continue or it's not my purpose. But at the end of the day, if we can look at this case study and we can replicate it across the country and elsewhere where there are village economies as well, we can create a tremendous storyboard. And I'm just looking for that kind of thing to happen. And if that happens while I'm still in this world, nothing more blessing than that.
That's so brilliant, and that sums up the conversation, Kishor. Thank you for being part of an episode. It was a wonderful conversation that I had with you. Looking forward for more to come with you as a journey of business and growth alongside tagging along with you. Thank you. Thanks again for gracing the event. That sums up.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really enjoyed.
Thank you.